Jamb 2026 candidates, you are welcome to today's lecture. We are going to continue from where we left off. Hope you still remember that we are still on the Go Destroying Jamb UTME syllabus. So the topic for our continuation today is kingdoms and what? Revolutionary progression. Organisms evolve from simple prokaryotes to complex multicellular form. So this is trying to tell us that every organism, every living organism originates from a simple prokaryotic cell. So a prokaryotic cell is a cell without organelle. A cell without a regular organelle, that is a prokaryotic cell. So it's trying to tell us that the basic unit of every living organism is through a prokaryotic cell. That's the evolutionary, progression or transition of every living organism. So this transitioning from prokaryotic cell to a more complex cell or multicellular organism is the evidence of increasing structural complexity. The evidence of increasing structural complexity denotes that it is a sign that this living organism is progressing in development, is progressing in functionalities. For example, from unicellular to multicellular with specialized organ. Okay, a unicellular organism, they only have just a few organelles. They have nucleus and some other small things where they help them, lead their life and fend for food and adapt to their environment. But this unicellular organism, such as a prokaryote, transforms gradually. Even you as a human, you originate from a prokaryotic cell. Every living organism. You transition into what? A multicellular organism with what? Specialized cell. You were once a unicellular organism, that's you were once one-celled. It got to a point, you continue to transition into specialized cells and organs. Life history often involves aquatic origin, transitioning to what? Terrestrial adaptation. So most organisms you find in terrestrial habitat or terrestrial environments, that's on land, they were once, an aquatic organism. They have some aquatic linkage, okay? They have something to do with the aquatic life. That's the history of evolution, okay? Evolutionary progression. So it's like saying that life begins in the water, then transition into land. That's from aquatic to terrestrial. Kingdoms are grouped by cell type, nutrition, and reproduction. You know the KP-CoV-GS, that acronym, KP-CoV-GS. Kingdom, phylum, order, GS, genus, and what? Species. So the grouping of kingdoms are by cells, nutrition, how do they get food? How do they fend for themselves? And reproduction, how do they reproduce? Is it sexual or asexual? What kind of reproduction do they carry out? Now, let's look at the classifications next. The study of classification is known as taxonomy. The study of classification of living organisms is known as what? Taxonomy. Now, the first under the classification of living organism and is the most simple, okay? Life starts from here. Is known as the Monera. You can call them the Monerans, okay? The Monera. And Monera has what is called the prokaryotic cell. And the prokaryotic cell is a cell type that has no organelle, only nucleus, okay? Only nucleus and cell wall. They have no organelle, no cytoplasm, okay? So that's a prokaryotic cell. It is believed that life started from here. Every living organism started as a what? Prokaryotic cell. It is the simplest organisms, no true nucleus, like I explained earlier. Examples of prokaryotic cell include bacteria, such as E. coli, and blue-green alga, such as what? Cyanobacteria. There's also a green alga called Chlamydomonas. So they are called prokaryotic what? Cell. What are the features or characteristics of prokaryotic cells? When you see prokaryotic cells, how would you know? How will you know when you see a prokaryotic cell? Number one, they are unicellular, meaning they have just one cell. They are microscopic, meaning that they can't be seen with the naked eyes. You need a magnification of up to 10,000 for you to see them. A microscope that will give you a magnification of up to 10 or 100,000 is electron microscope. So the modern electron microscope gives times 100,000 the actual size of the object, but older electron microscope give just 10,000 times the the object. So prokaryotic cells or monerans are rod shaped. They are mostly bacteria, and they can be rod shaped. They can be rod shaped like a vibro. Okay, vibro is rod shaped, and spherical. Okay, spherical like a staphylococcus. Okay, or grape shape. They reproduce by binary fission. Remember when we were discussing grouping, okay? We said based on nutrition, reproduction, and what? Adaptation, how they feed. So you can see their method of reproduction. They reproduce through what? Binary fission. So binary fission is when the prokaryotic cell divides into two daughters equally, okay? Into what? Two daughters. That's how they reproduce. So blue-green algae are photosynthetic, such as Chlamydomonas or cyanobacteria. And they form colonies. What is colonies? Colony are when bacteria gather for somewhere. And there are different forms of colonies, okay? There is a biconcave, there is planoconcave, there is planoconvex, various shapes. of colonies formed by bacteria. You have planoconvex, you have convex shape, you also have the concave shape, okay, of colonies. There are different types of colonies made by bacteria, so you don't have to worry about that. Now let's look at the structural complexities of monerans or the prokaryotes. Okay, they are basic prokaryotic cell with cell wall. Okay, they have plasma membrane, they have cytoplasm, they have ribosome and plasmids. Okay, they don't have other organelles, other specialized organelles. They are just simple cell with just, you know, cell wall, cell membrane and cytoplasm, ribosome, protein synthesis and plasmids. No organelle like mitochondria, so they don't have mitochondria as an organelle. All right, so it's a simple cell. All right, so they don't have any organelle outside the cytoplasm. You know, the cytoplasm is made up of few organelles, such as, you know, cytoplasm houses organelles like, you know, ribosomes, membrane of the cell, and so on and so forth. So all these organelles that are found outside the cytoplasm, you don't find them in prokaryotic cells. Now let's look at the life history of prokaryotes or monerans. They have a rapid asexual reproduction. You don't need two nuclei to meet in order for reproduction to occur. One nuclei just on its own, it just reproduces. Okay, divides into two daughters. For example, amoeba or amoeba divides into what? Two daughters, identical. So some form spores for survival. Okay, some form spores for survival. Spores is like a dormant form, okay, of an organism. Okay, they release those spores. Okay, they also is a way of, you know, reproduction. Okay, it's a way of reproduction. It contributes to reproduction. They release those spores to multiply. All right, aquatic. Some can be aquatic or what? Soil dwelling. So you can see how they reproduce. You can see how they multiply. They form spores. Okay, for survival, they will hide inside that spores. Okay, and they are young too. They are young. The one that just got the one that was just induced through asexual reproduction, binary fission. They stay in that spore. All right. So they can be aquatic or soil dwelling. For example, amoeba or amoeba is aquatic dwelling. All right. Or they can be what? They can be soil dwelling, such as the cyanobacteria. Okay. The evolution and transition of, you know, prokaryotes. They are ancestral to all life, like I said before. All existing cells were once a prokaryotic cell. All existing cells were once a moneran. That's what it's saying. Okay? For a cell to exist, there must have been a pre-existing cell. So this one is the pre-existing cell that they talked about. All right? That's the pre-existing cell. That's the what they talked about. When they are in this level, okay, this prokaryotic level, they are usually aquatic. Okay? They don't transition into land yet. They don't transition into the terrestrial habitat yet. Okay, this prokaryotic cell or monera represents the what? The start of evolution. It represents what? The start of evolution. Now let's look at the next classification. Okay, you can see from basic to complex. We have treated the most basic, the smallest, the first form. Okay, so you can see how it's transitioning into Protista. You are going to see that Protista is more specialized than the what? The monerans or the prokaryotes. Okay, so Protista is the next under the classification, and they include what? Protozoans and protophyta, and they are what? Eukaryotic cell. So most of them are unicellular. For example, amoeba, which is a protozoa, euglena, which is a protophyta, and paramecium, which is also a what? Protozoa. All right. And you know that most protozoans live in the aquatic environment. They live in water. All right. So they are eukaryotic. Protistas have eukaryotic cell. Eukaryotic cell means that it's a cell that contains complete organelle. Okay. It's a more specialized cell, not like the primary prokaryotic cell. All right. It has mitochondrion and other cell organelles that are not in the cytoplasm. Now, let's look at the features and characteristics of the protistas. The first here is amoeba possesses or they observe amoeboid movement. And what is the amoeboid movement? Soul, gel, soul. The amoeboid movement is semi-solid, solid, semi-solid, solid, semi-solid, solid. One of the pseudopodia or the pseudopodium will be in a solid state. The other will be in the what? The semi-solid state, which is the gel. So the solid state is the soul. The semi-solid state is the what? The gel. All right. That's how they are going to be exchanging, and the amoeboid movement is achieved. Okay. Through the what? The help of the what? The pseudopodia. That's how the amoeba possess this amoeboid what? Movement. Euglena has flagellae. Okay, it's flagellated with what? Chloroplast for what? Photosynthesis. Remember that euglena possess the properties of both, you know, plants, because it can make its own food. It possesses an autotrophic and heterotrophic, you know, characteristic. Okay, it ingests food, and it also produces its own food. Okay, with sunlight. So it has chloroplast. Okay, paramecium is ciliated. Unlike euglena that locomotes with its flagella, paramecium locomotes with cilia. And you know how cilia looks. Cilia is more, okay, in quantity, but flagella is mostly two most of the time. And cilia are shorter, okay, shorter, but flagella longer. All right, that's the difference. Those are the differences between cilia and flagellum. All right. The next is structural complexity. What are the structural complexity of protistas? They are eukaryotic cell with nucleus, and they have organelles such as, mitochondria and vacuole. They are more complex than monerans. Okay, they are more what? Complex than what? Monera, like I explained before in the beginning of this lecture. The life history of protista include asexual binary fission and sexual reproduction. So their reproduction is through both asexual and sexual reproduction. All right. So they observe binary fission, they reproduce through binary fission, and they also reproduce through what? Binary fusion, which is fusing of nuclei, which is a sexual form of reproduction. All right. Euglena shows mesotrophy, which is what? Photosynthesis and ingestion, like I explained before. It has this plant and animal-like characteristic, okay? So it can make its own food, and it can also ingest and digest food. Their habitat is aquatic. I said this in the beginning, that protozoans and protophyta are mostly what? Aquatic. Now, water they stay. So if you want to be infested by amoeba, that causes amoebic dysentery, all right? Go they swim for inside any water, dirty water. You are going to be infested by protozoans. Now make mosquito larvae, they thrive well for stagnant water, because that's their habitat. All right. What is the evolution and transition? Transition is the shift from basic to a more complex, or from complex to a more complex structure. That's transition is from one stage to another. Okay, from one level to another. That's transition. Okay. The evolution and transition of protozoa is the bridge to multicellularity. So this protista is the window into multicellularity. Having multiple cells is the window. It's like the boundary. It don't enter multicellularity. It don't enter more than one cell. You understand? So most of them are aquatic. That's their transitioning. The euglena's possession of chloroplast shows us that this protista has a plant origin. Okay, it has some plant, roots. It has a plant evolution. Okay, so it has something to do with plants. So that's it. The next under the classification, the third classification is fungi. Fungi are more specialized than the protista. Okay, so fungi are prokaryotic cell. They are non-photosynthetic. They don't photosynthesize. They are saprophytic or parasitic. They can either be saprophytic. You know what a saprophyte is? Saprophytes are organisms that facilitate the decay of biodegradable matter, and that's where they generate energy. Okay, they generate energy from biodegradable matter. Okay, that's why you see them on things that are getting biodegraded. Spoiled food where they spoil. Okay, something where they spoil, perishable item where they start perishing. That's where you see fungi. Okay, and they can be parasitic fungi. Examples include mushroom, which is the basidiomycete. Okay, this basidiomycete is the specific name for mushroom, but this is the common name, mushroom. The next example here is rhizopus. Have you heard of mucor musedu? That one where they grow inside your rice and spaghetti for house. Where you don't cook rice, leave them for 5 days, leave them for 1 week. Mucor musedu, we grow on it. Okay, and they start decaying it because they derive energy from decaying matter, or from what? Biodegrading matter. All right. So it can also be called what? Bread mold. Okay, or mucor musedu. What are the features and characteristics of fungi? When we see fungi, how do we know they are fungi? Okay, number one, they are multicellular. They have hyphae network, and this hyphae network is through this network that substances, solutes, what are needed for cellular growth move throughout the cell through this hyphae network. But rhizopus has sporangia. So the structural complexity of fungi is that it has hyphae with cell wall, which is called sheeting. And what is sheeting made of? Sheeting is made from carbohydrates. It's a plant-based material. It's a plant-based structure. Okay, and this is the structural complexity. Now these fungi rich. Now here they develop rich. They get this sheeting. Fungi have no chloroplast. They do not photosynthesize. All right. They are more organized than protistas. Okay. You can see how we are transcending in this classification and grouping. All right. The life history of fungi. They spore for reproduction. They produce spores. All right. They produce spore, and the life cycle of the fungi includes a haploid and diploid phase. The haploid stage is one cell is divided by half. That's haploid. Okay. Then from this haploid, it transitions into the diploid phase, where the cells further divides into two. Diploid, okay? Diploid, all right? That's the phases of its reproduction. And remember, it forms spores for reproduction. Remember, formation of spore or sporing is the method of multiplication of many organisms, okay? Like the Moneras, okay? They possess sporing, okay? Now we are seeing fungus or fungi possessing the same sporing. And their life history, now for soil that they day or decaying matter, just like I explained before. So their habitat is decaying matter. Because they say now where person food day, therefore they see person. If you want to locate an organism, look for its ecological niche. And what is the ecological niche of the organism? It is the location of its food. That's where you are going to find the organism. If you want to find any organism, now where in food there you go see them. What is the evolution and transition? Okay, they adapt to land. All right, where do they see fungi? Not before land. decompose organic matter. They decompose organic matter. That's where they derive energy. The saprophytic ones especially. And they aid in terrestrial ecosystem. They aid in what? Terrestrial ecosystem. They help decay matter. They help in biodegrading, decomposition. To they make things they rotty. And you know that when organic matters decomposes, they are converted into nutrients for the soil, various things, nitrification, and so on and so forth. There are lots of eco-friendly benefits from decaying matter or biodegradation. Now let's look at the next more complex classification, which is plantae or the kingdom plantae. So the kingdom plantae or the plant includes plants. Okay, plants are eukaryotic cells, and we already explained what eukaryotic cells are. They photosynthesize, they are photosynthetic, they are multicellular, and they have divisions. Okay. And now we want to look at the divisions of plants. Okay, the divisions of plants. Here, Jamb, they take this place, they play. The first division of plant is what? The Thallophyta. And the Thallophyta includes algae, which is an example of algae is what? Spirogyra. Spirogyra is a filamentous green alga. It's a filamentous what? Green alga. And it is aquatic. Thallophytes are aquatic. They have simple thallus body. They have what? Simple what? Thallus body. When you say it has a thallus body, it has this kind of, ridges around it. Is filamentous. Okay, filamentous, very attractive kind of body. The next under the plant division is Bryophyta, and Bryophyta includes mosses / liverworts. You know what moss is now? You know where they see moss. Many of us they mistake moss for Spirogyra. Okay, that one will be like hair. Hair is greenish, but it's hairy. They always they fence for fence. That they you go carry shovel, they scrape and they come out. That one is moss. But the one you see inside keg, inside gallon of water, where you taste of water, where they green, or inside tank, where they smooth surface. It's also greenish. That one is Spirogyra. Okay, you also see Spirogyra on stagnant water. All right, so that's the difference between moss and Spirogyra. Examples of these mosses and liverworts include the Brachymenium, okay, and the Marchantia. Okay, both of them are the example of the species of moss, the Brachymenium, and for liverwort, the Marchantia. They are small. They are non-vascular. When you say they are non-vascular means they don't have this network of circulation. Okay, they are not like the fungi, for example, that have hyphae network. That helps them in circulation, that facilitates circulation. No, they are not vascular. All right, all this kind of organism, such as this moss, okay, this plant like moss and liverwort, they receive nutrient through direct contact. No network. All right, no network, no vascular network, no vessels. Okay, they have no vessels. They have rhizoid for anchorage. So it is through this anchorage that they receive nutrients. They anchor on on whatever their subjects to receive nutrients. This anchor is their support. That's what they use to cling on surfaces. Okay, they use it to cling on surfaces. They use it to hold on to surfaces. Rhizoid is the adaptive feature of the bryophytes. All right, mosses and liverworts, and so on and so forth. The next under the plant grouping is the what? The pteridophytes. And the pteridophytes include ferns. For example, this one is the species of fern. I don't want to be pronouncing it. All right, they are vascular, unlike the bryophyta that are not vascular. The pteridophyta are vascular. Okay, they have xylem and they have phloem. Okay, they have fronts and they also spore. They spore like a prokaryotic cell. Okay, they spore. Okay, they spore like prokaryotic cell and fungi. Okay, the next we have under the plant grouping is the spermatophyta, and spermatophyta includes seed plants. All these plants where they get seed, anything seed plant is spermatophyta. Anytime you hear that sperm, just know say na seed. It originates from what? Seed. The spermatophyta is further divided into two classes. Okay, it's divided into two classes, which include the gymnosperm, which is a naked seed, and examples of the gymnosperm which have naked seeds include the cycads, the conifers. The conifers is also called pines. Okay, pines, and they are usually cone shaped. Okay, the naked seed are usually cone shaped and needle-like leaves. Remember, spermatophyta are seed plants. The next under the spermatophyta classification is angiosperms, and angiosperms are what? Flowering plants. They include the monocots and the dicots. Under monocots means a one seed leaf plant. Okay, one seed leaf plant or cotyledon. All right. For example, they include maize, okay, which have parallel veins, parallel vascularity crossing across its leaves. Okay, you will see that parallel vein. That's how to spot between or to differentiate between a monocot and a dicot plant, or a monocotyledonous plant and dicotyledonous plant. All right, they also have what? Fibrous roots. That's their kind of roots, monocot plants. Okay, then for dicot plants, they include water leaf. Dicot plants, no, they get long leaf with parallel veins. No, they don't have long leaf with parallel vein. They have a kind of like oval leaf. Have you seen the leaf of beans before? Beans or water leaf, for example. You know how the shape they be. So they have net vein instead of that parallel straight vein. For dicot plant or dicotyledonous plants, remember the meaning of dicot is two seed leaf or cotyledon. Okay, so two seed leaf. So the vein they be like net. If you look the leaf, you go be like saying a net. You will see something will be like saying a net. The vascularity, the capillary network, okay, of the of the leaf. Okay, it has what? Taproot. So in monocotyledonous plants, there is fibrous roots, but in dicotyledonous plants, there is what? Taproot. Now, let's look at the features and characteristics of the plant classification or the kingdom plantae classification, each of them. The Thallophyta are aquatic and filamentous. Okay, we already discussed this. The Bryophyta are low growing. They grow slowly. Okay, slowly, the Bryophyta. The Pteridophyta has what? Large fronts. All right, while the Spermatophyta includes what? The seeds and the flowers. Okay, they include the seed, naked seed. Okay, and the what? The flowering what? Plants. I know what flowering plants is now. Plants where they produce flower. Okay, you will see flower, but the leaf go full everywhere. Now that one be flowering plants. So you have flowering and non-flowering plants. Non-flowering plant is the gymnosperm, while the flowering plant is the angiosperm. Now, what is the structural complexity of these groups in the kingdom plantae or in the plant kingdom? Okay, it progresses from thallophytes, which is the simplest, to bryophyta. Okay, then from bryophyta, it moves into the pteridophyta, which has true vascular network. Okay, remember the bryophyta has a kind of quasi or unreal vascular network. Complete finish. Okay, but when you come enter pteridophyta, you have this true vascular network. Okay, then it now transition into what? Spermatophyta, which is seeds and flowering plants. Okay, the seeds of the plants and the flowers, these flowers are for protection. The seed, the tester are for protection. The tester or the seed protects during germination. The flower protects the plants too. Okay, when the plant is fully mature, the flower protects the plants. Okay, it helps in mobilization of nutrients. So when food are produced, it is through those capillary networks, okay, vascular networks, that those food substances are transported to the other parts of the body. You know that photosynthesis occurs in the leaf. All right, so if food substance or the products of photosynthesis accumulates there, is going to lead to problems. So the flowers protect the plants by transporting those nutrients through the vascular networks. So the life history of the plants, what's the life history of plants or the kingdom plantae? Alternation of generation. The generation they change. You know the spermatophyta now. You know that it's further divided into two. Now terrestrial, now be their habitats. All right. Now terrestrial plants they be. Aquatic thallophyta. Now aquatic plants they be. Okay. But we know now that thallophytas are aquatic. But they transition into where? Into what? Spermatophyta, which are terrestrial. This life history upgrades from this aquatic habitat. It upgrades or it transitions into terrestrial. And what kind of plants do you have in the terrestrial habitats? You have the spermatophyta there. Now let's look at the evolution/transition. Plants gradually adapt to land. Okay, they are very strong. They sabi do and well. You can see how the transitioning goes. Okay, from their evolution to their transitioning. Okay, from aquatic, such as the algae, which are aquatic, they transition into semi-aquatic, which are what? The bryophytes are semi-aquatic. Okay, then they transition. This bryophyte transition into terrestrial, such as ferns and gymnosperms. Okay, they are terrestrial. Okay, their habitat is terrestrial. Then from this terrestrial, they transition into a more advanced terrestrial plant, which is angiosperms. All right, which are the what? The flowering plants, the angiosperms. Okay, seeds enable land colonization. Do you know dispersion of seed? Where seed moves. So the more seeds are dispersed, the more lands are colonized by plants. All right. So the classification of spermatophyta is based on the lifespan or the life cycle. Okay, the life cycle span. That is the classification. How long do they live? How long the plant they stay before it completes in life cycle? That's the classification of spermatophyta. Spermatophyta can also be classified based on its lifespan cycle or its life cycle. And this life cycle means how long does this plant spend before it dies, before it completes its life cycle, before it completes its growing season and leave the earth. How long? The first classification we have here is the annuals. Okay, the annuals, they are called annual because they complete their life cycle in 1 year or in one growing season. Okay, for example, maize is an annual crop. Okay, let's call it crop. Okay, because it's edible, it's used by man. Okay, maize is an annual crop. All right, then the next is biennial. Bi stands for 2. For the biennial spermatophyta, they complete their life cycle within what? 2 years or 2 growing seasons. Example include carrots. All right. So the third we have here is perennial spermatophyta, and these ones they stay years, such as mango trees, cherry trees, all those trees, coconuts. Then they spend years. Also include trees like conifers. You know conifers, having the cone shape and having needle-like leaves. All right. They are the pine family. They have pines. All right. So example of this biennial crop include banana. Okay. Banana is a biennial, is a biennial plant or biennial crop. All right. So usually this biennial crop, the first growing season, what do they do during the first growing season? During the first growing season, they use it for growth and development. Growth and what? Development. Then the second year, they use it to start producing fruits, mature those fruits. Okay. And they die after that second year. So for perennial, during the first year or the first 2 years, they use it to grow and develop. They use it for growth and development. Then after that first 2 years, they use the other years that they are going to stay, okay, or that they are going to live towards, bear fruits every season. They bear fruit, they continue to bear fruits every season. Every season, until they die after their life cycle has been completed. But for the annual crop or the annual plants, these annual spermatophytes, they use few months, maybe like 3 months, to grow and develop. They after developing, they use the remaining few months to start producing fruits. And they mature that fruit and they complete their life cycle within 1 year or one growing season and they die off.